gut health isn't about digestion. It's about mood, energy, immunity, and how we show up in the world. And for women navigating perimenopause or burnout, it can feel like everything is unraveling at once. But what if healing your gut could be the key to reclaiming your balance? Hi, I'm Diane Hatz, and welcome to Hearth Talks. Today, I am super excited to speak with Rachel Korn, a clinical Ayurvedic specialist and certified health and wellness coach. After 15 years in the film industry, Rachel turned to Ayurveda in 2019 to heal her own chronic digestive issues, an experience that now fuels her passion for helping high achieving women navigate gut health and hormonal shifts, especially during perimenopause. With a focus on digestive disorders and women's health, Rachel blends Ayurvedic wisdom, lifestyle medicine, and functional lab testing to guide her clients back to balance. Welcome, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh,
How are
wow.
you?
So my pleasure. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So why don't we jump right in? I would love to know about your gut health healing journey. Like what symptoms did you experience? What prompted you on this journey, etc.?
Yeah, well, um, this has really been with me my whole life. It's been going on, something that I've been dealing with. So I remember having constipation as a kid, um, being taken to holistic health practitioners, being given all kinds of tinctures to help with my own gut issues that were going on. And as I was growing up, it sort of came in, came out. You get busy with life, you go to college, you don't necessarily pay as much attention to things. But then I remember in my 20s, I'm out in the workforce for the first time in an industry that's high pressure. And I was getting increasing gut symptoms of bloating. I mean, constipation was such a standard at that time, I didn't even really think about it anymore. I was just used to it. And things got progressively worse in my 20s. You're out, you're having fun, you're not necessarily paying as much attention to your body or what you're eating, what you're doing. And on top of that, having stress compounding my gut issues, it really started to come to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. Like I really wanted to get to the bottom of what was going on. My grandmother was diagnosed with colon cancer, so that prompted me going in to see a gastroenterologist, a lot earlier than most of us normally do. Generally, you wait until you're in your 40s to go get a colonoscopy. And I felt when I spoke to the gastroenterologist about my symptoms that I was not given any practical advice or help as to how I could actually resolve what was going on. There didn't seem to be a way to get to the bottom of it, to stop it. Instead, it was taking various forms of medication to mask symptoms. And that never felt right with me. I'd like to generally be as medication free as possible. I think that's just something that was innately within me. And so after one colonoscopy, when in my opinion, I was like, okay, great. I have a brand new gut lining. I've been emptied out. What can I like? To me, this is we can start again. So then I asked the gastroenterologist, like, what is the best thing that I should be eating after this procedure? And they just told me, anything. You'll be fine. Go have a proper meal. And I even asked, well, what about the benefits of bone broth? And the gastroenterologist was like, that's not been proven for anything. And, in my tradition, bone broth is an age-old healing.
And what's your tradition? Sorry, what's your tradition?
I'm Jewish.
Okay.
So, it's Jewish penicillin, right? If you get sick, if you get ill, you're given bone broth. So to hear that, a doctor didn't understand the benefits of something that's so nourishing for the stomach and so healing, I, at that point, just Googled alternative healing, and Ayurveda popped up. It was something I'd never heard of before.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but I just want to also ask, it's one thing, like I had gut issues. I don't know what woman hasn't had gut issues at some point, really. But I had gut issues, but I didn't leave my career. Like, everyone looks at the film industry or like the entertainment industry. Like, what inspired you to go from having a colonoscopy to quitting your career and actually taking this on, as a new career?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as clearly linked at the time for me. I didn't have a passion for something over something else. I had really got into a place where I was burnt out. I had been working long hours, very stressful, covering a few different positions, and was also feeling disillusioned with the film industry and why I had gotten into it, and I wasn't doing what I had initially planned, desired, hoped for. And so really leaving that career was very separate to going on to study. I quit not necessarily because of my stomach issues. They were just always playing about in the background, and I could tell when they were easier and when they were worse, being so busy in times of stress. So really, I quit and then went to study what I was interested in.
For you, because a lot of people don't. Okay, so we want to pick your brain here. How would you explain the gut microbiome to someone who has never heard the term before?
Yeah. So interestingly, not many people have. I like to describe it as a garden. So the microbiome itself is this soil that things will grow in. And depending on the health of that soil will depend on whether we're getting, luscious plants and vegetables and super healthy, nutritious things growing, or if we're getting weeds and lots of, unpleasant bugs that we don't particularly want around. When I'm talking to somebody about the microbiome, there's obviously, if you think of soil, there's all these different elements in there. There's trillions of bacteria, fungi, viruses. There's so many different types of organisms that are living in there. And they are like this wonderful little community that when everything is in balance, they work together. They all have these really important jobs in how our food is broken down, how our the actual health of our gut lining is dependent on these bugs. I'd like to describe it as, when it's in balance, all of these are working well together. And when we get overgrowth of the unhelpful bugs, that's when we start to get into having symptoms.
So this is a philosophical comment or question. I've heard some people say that humans are just a receptacle for the bacteria and all the stuff in our bodies. Do you adhere to that? Like, I think a lot of people don't understand that there are trillions of microorganisms within us.
Yeah, we are more bacteria than we are human cells. It's crazy. I mean, I like that idea that we are a receptacle. Like, who is really, are we the host
Yeah, or they.
yeah. I mean, it's this bigger picture of how things work in the gut, right? Like it is a symbiotic relationship that we need to be in balance and honor all these different mechanisms that are in our body.
You talked about weeds and then like healthy plants. So why is a healthy gut microbiome so central to overall wellness? Like beyond just digestion, I think a lot of people would figure out or know that our gut is to digest food, but how else is it important to overall health?
Scientists are now saying anywhere from 70 to 85% of our immune system, of our immunity, starts in the gut. In terms of why it's so important, that's really why. Our intestines is essentially a hole that goes all the way through us, and it's where
I never thought of it like that. We have a hole that goes right through
we
us.
are a donut, right? And so how our outside skin is susceptible to the outside environment, it's the first point of entry into our in our internal system. And so in the gut, right behind the cells of the gut lining is where our blood vessels and our lymph vessels are starting. And so anything that we're eating is very easily crossing that barrier. The nutrients are crossing that barrier and getting right into our immune system.
So, what are some of the most common myths or misconceptions that you encounter about gut health?
One of the most irritating ones that comes up quite a lot is about acid reflux, stomach acid.
I went through this. I know what you're going to say, but anyway, was being told I had acid reflux and like nothing helped. And I'm like, no. And I finally found someone who said it was leaky gut syndrome.
Right. Well, I mean, the most common prescription for somebody saying that they have acid reflux is to put somebody on a PPI, proton pump inhibitor, which essentially turns off stomach acid. And that misconception is incredibly irritating because it's the opposite. And our stomach is incredibly acidic. And we feel that acid reflux because our food hasn't been properly broken down enough because we don't have enough stomach acid, or it's not low enough. And so it's maldigesting and starting to push up through the esophagus. And that's what we can feel. So it is acid that we're feeling. It's not another symptom. But the way to heal that is to actually increase stomach acid. We want to promote the digestion of food. And proton pump inhibitors have just been the effect of switching off stomach acid affects the rest of the digestive system.
Got off the Nexium quickly.
Very good.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. I'm like, no, keep taking. I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. So you study and help people with their gut and constipation, but you work in Ayurvedic principles. And I find that really fascinating because I had a lot of gut issues and no one ever brought up something like Ayurvedic. So can you just sort of explain? I know it's complicated and it can take days to explain the whole Ayurvedic system, but just briefly, why you got so attracted to Ayurvedic and how it helps you with the work that you do.
It is quite complex. In its most basic term, Ayurveda is a holistic medicine practice that came out of India, and it incorporates looking around our natural world and identifying qualities that we see everywhere. So it was really understanding my body in terms of these qualities and understanding symptoms in terms of these qualities that finally something clicked for me. I kind of understood myself on a whole other level. And so by qualities, what I mean is if we look at an element like earth, it is heavy versus light. So like the air is very light, earth is heavy. Earth is cold, whereas an element like fire has heat. Earth without any fire is always going to be inherently cold. When we look around us, things that we're talking about every day, we're in Santa Fe, so we say a lot how dry it is. So dry versus moist are also another pair of qualities to be able to describe everything. And so for me, with constipation, it has the qualities of being dry, and it changes. Sometimes your regularity is not there, and so it has this mobile quality. It moves quite a bit, and it is cold. There's no heat there, and when I started studying Ayurveda, some of the things that also go along with these types of qualities, we look at food, we look at habits that also have those same cold, dry, movable elements to it. Things like eating popcorn and crackers and granola. They're all dry. There's no moisture in those food items. And I loved those foods. Like I was just inherently drawn. I was like, oh yes, the things that you're most often drawn to are sometimes the things that put us out of balance. And so being able to see, okay, there's a correlation between these symptoms here, these qualities. Then you can take that understanding and bring it out into further parts of your life, looking at everything through this lens of what is a quality of what I'm doing or eating, and is that going to bring me into balance or take me out of balance?
So I'm still a little confused. How would that, like, you really wanted to eat potato chips. What were you? Like, were you dry, wet, moist, whatever? And then earthy, like, how do you frame it? And then how does it apply to gut health? Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot in this.
Maybe we should just tell people we'll do just a whole thing in the future on Ayurvedic practice, because it's a life, isn't it? It's a lifestyle. It's not just one thing. It's a whole
Yeah,
system.
it's a system. It's absolutely a system and it's a way of living. The three main Ayurvedic gut types, maybe, is something we could talk about. So
Okay.
you can have a very dry symptom, which is constipation. Constipation happens because there's not enough moisture in the gut to move things along. It's literally dry. When you compare different types of bowel movements, you can see the more rabbit palate is drier than when we're running to the bathroom and
I love your
having
job.
loose stools.
Do you know how many people like to talk about poop?
I love talking about poop.
Okay, so I get that. That's very
So
easy to
that's
understand. So let's stick with that, with
butter and
constipation.
that's dry. And then an inflammatory, so a heat, as I was talking about the quality of heat, that can be seen through, well, diarrhea and inflammation. I think we've all had times where we may have eaten something and suddenly we need to run to the bathroom. That is heat that is getting pushed out through the body. Mostly that is exactly what it's meant to do. But when it's chronic or when it's every day, that tells us that there's way too much heat, or in Ayurveda, it's called pitta in the body. And then we have kapha, which is this heavier, dense quality. And that can be seen by this type of sluggish metabolism. So when you eat something and things sort of feel like a rock in the stomach, like things aren't moving, it's a combination of earth and water that's sort of just sitting there and stuck. And it could also be seen with things that are overgrowing. So candida, yeast.
That.
Yeah. That's something that's when things are just multiplying and growing, having more of something is a very kapha set of symptoms. Does that help explain or connect these two ideas a little bit?
It does. So let's stick with the constipation. You said that's dry. Then what would you work with somebody to do to undo the dryness?
From a purely Ayurvedic lens, this would be bringing in moisture.
Okay. So
So
certain foods, certain.
that can look like literally needing more hydration,
Okay.
drinking more, which a lot of us are not actually drinking enough water.
Can I ask you this question? Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. So I heard this was debunked, but before, the amount of like tea or coffee that you drank, the water, they didn't count. But then I just heard recently that's debunked. Like, I drink green tea all day, but I dilute it more and more with water as the day goes on. Is that not me getting water intake?
I've heard a few different things on this that, I mean, herbal versus a green tea, I think might be quite different. Yes, of course, you're literally getting some water, right? Like that's what tea is, but it's not as absorbable. You're not getting exactly the same absorption of those kinds of molecules that you would want in straight up spring water.
So basically, to anyone who drinks teas and coffees and stuff like that, they still should be having how much water a
Well,
day?
coffee definitely, because coffee is dehydrating.
Right. So let's
Something
stick with
like
tea.
I mean, this is by the way a very cool way to be able to tell something. When you take a sip of like a jasmine green tea or a really strong geisha or sencha green tea, your tongue goes a little bit dry.
Mm.
So that's sort of telling you that it's actually drying, which is a funny concept because you're drinking something warm. Same thing with a cranberry juice or a hibiscus. When you take,
Hibiscus is
yeah,
drying?
hibiscus is drying. You can tell because when you drink it, your mouth, it absorbs the water. You're a bit drier afterwards.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I just took a sip of green tea and I get what you're saying.
yeah, so that's, I mean, this is a really cool way to be able to see how Ayurveda or looking at the world through these qualities can give you information. It's all just information, right? And so to answer that question, yes, if you're having coffee, you definitely need to be drinking a lot more water. I would even suggest having water, room temperature water before coffee.
And I've also heard more than one opinion on how much water is supposed to have a day. Like if you're having 2 cups of green tea, how much water? Does that depend on body weight, age? Is there differences or is there just a general?
So, the general rule out there is to take your weight in pounds and to halve it. And that's what we should be having.
Ounces and
Yeah,
gallons?
in ounces. There's also other markers that you can tell. You know, if you're getting dry lips,
Mm.
that's a sign that we need some more hydration. And then there's other things that you can do to kind of plump your hydration up at the same time. So adding collagen powder, adding some powdered hyaluronic acid, those can give you that extra bit of boost as well as electrolytes.
Okay, let's get off this. I'm just doing this for me. And I mean, I do care about other people drinking tea. So, what skills or lessons from your film industry days proved useful when you shifted to health coaching?
Indirectly, I would say maybe being around so many different types of people and having to relay information to people who take information in different ways. We all learn differently. So being able to get concepts or ideas across to different types of people, I think it has been the biggest benefit for me.
So, let's switch to how you can help other people.
Yeah.
If someone suspects that their gut is out of balance, and I think everyone can basically tell you're not pooping, you're pooping too much, what's the very first step you would have them take?
To bring balance back into the digestive system.
But they're not going to know what that is.
Yeah.
So they just want to feel better. But what's like if you're constipated, drink more water, or like a very simple, and then start Googling, like very basic. Because I know when I started, when I'm with all my food issues, I didn't know where to begin, and it's very overwhelming. And after a while, you're just like, I'll take the Nexium or whatever. Like you don't want to, but you get overwhelmed. So what would you suggest people do as a first step?
I think the very, very first thing to do is to take an inventory of what you're eating. Being able, I think, to understand what you're eating and what the symptoms are and what your bowel habits are with that is a, a really amazing first step that people aren't always in touch with. And then I would say to look at the things that you're eating, how much of it is processed, packaged, coming to you in a box or a can or a bottle versus what are you making from scratch or what looks like whole foods. I think it's a large topic to undertake or a large task to undertake, but transitioning towards a diverse and whole food diet would be, without getting into the specifics of knowing what's going on with somebody, is the best direction somebody could take for their overall gut health.
So I just had a thought. Can you explain, you said track your food journal, like what do you mean? And then could people do that and put it in AI? Like let's say you can't afford you yet.
Mm-hmm.
They will very soon, but they just want to see, but what do you do to track? And then what do you think about using AI?
I mean, I give out the very first thing when I see a client is I give them a food journal, and it's a sheet of paper with 3 boxes, three columns, time of meal, what it was, how I felt.
Okay. And how
That's
long?
literally it.
How long do they do that for?
7 days to get a good picture, but you could see in five regular days. And then I'm sorry, your second question from that? Oh, AI.
I'm into
I
AI.
I have not done this myself, but I saw a few, Instagram accounts all saying, "Oh, I put my food or I put my goals into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told me, AI told me the best grocery and the best, gave me some recipes." I think if you can give AI the right parameters, that's amazing. I think as well, if you can track your food and tell AI, these are my symptoms, what do you think might be causing it? I'm sure AI would be able to give you a pretty good answer there. I have
Yeah, and
not
I do
tried
want
that.
to I do want to caveat that with
Yeah.
AI is wrong. Like, just so people understand, AI can be wrong, and your best bet is to go to someone like Rachel. So I'm not saying don't go to a professional, but if you're just starting out, you have no clue what you're doing, you're feeling a little lost, it can, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, it could get you interested to start reading more and then realizing that you need a professional who's an expert in this to really help. I just think that it might help more than, I'm not saying don't go to a doctor if you have to, but like your experience where they're just trying to give you drugs that's masking a symptom, it's not curing the problem. And I think AI can sort of help us learn to differentiate more because there are times doctors are necessary for certain things, fixing a broken bone, you know.
I mean, honestly, doing these two things would drastically change anybody's symptoms. Eating a whole foods diet, trying to get 30 different kinds of fresh foods into your diet
A week,
in a
right?
week could drastically change your microbiome. I mean, the gut lining cells renew every 3 to 5 days. So
Wow.
you don't have to be doing something for a long amount of time to notice an immediate difference. And I think if people addressed how they ate,
Meaning,
meaning, are you rushed? Are you stressed? Are you paying attention to your food? Are you occupied scrolling or watching TV? Do you feel good? Are you happy? Or are you angry about something that you're bringing into this experience of eating?
and then can that affect your digestion?
That can all affect your digestion. So just those two things, which doesn't involve seeing a doctor, which a doctor will not be telling you how to do this, you could go and solve or resolve quite a lot of symptoms.
And I just want to mention briefly the 30 foods in a week. That was mentioned to me or suggested to me years ago. And I'm like, 30 foods in a week? Who can eat 30 different foods in a week? And it actually is not that hard. If you do nuts and seeds, and if you're doing it, wheat is one, corn is one, dairy is one. So yogurt, butter, ice cream, that's one. That's not three. I mean, no, because I think there are people who cheat, but I found like capers.
Yeah.
I've never had capers before.
Yeah.
I started eating foods that I hadn't
Herbs as
eaten.
well. Herbs
Yeah.
count, putting oregano and thyme and garlic and onion and things. That's four right away.
Well, that's good to know because I count cinnamon.
Yeah.
'Cause I put tons of cinnamon on like oatmeal when I make it. Because I can get like 10 foods in one bowl of oatmeal. So just so people know, because when you just say 30 foods, because most people eat what, wheat, corn, and soy, and a meat.
Yeah.
I know.
It's really sad.
So which 5 foods or food preparation techniques do you find most powerful to serve to nourish your gut?
Yeah. Well, the first one I already mentioned, bone broth. Incredibly, incredibly healing that collagen. That can go in. You mentioned leaky gut, so collagen will come in and it'll help to heal and seal and renew the gut lining. Fermented foods, so things like kimchi, sauerkraut, tofu, again, they have amazing source of probiotics to be able to help nourish that soil, that garden, and get some of the good, helpful bugs in there that feed other bugs. Like it promotes the growth of the others. I would say some omega fatty acids are really important for reducing inflammation. Something that I love that's really easy is sardines.
Ugh. I'm a
super
vegetarian.
tasty.
I'm a vegetarian. Yeah, I know
Okay.
people love them.
Super easy, a great source of omega fatty acids, which we need. Polyphenols is getting quite a bit of talk recently because of its relationship with echinacea, which promotes the hormone GLP-1. So I would say polyphenols, which you find in berries, incredibly.
Blueberries, right, are really good.
But why I like wild blueberries, but yeah,
Yes, me
all
too.
kinds of berries um, will really help give more food to the good bacteria that we want growing. And then a fifth one, I mean, fiber is just pivotal. Maybe one of the best ways I like to get fiber in, or an easier way to get some fiber in, is an Ayurvedic traditional healing dish called khichdi, which is lentils and rice, and then you throw in a bunch of vegetables. But those having this moist, nourishing source of fiber is really important.
So with, let's say, fiber, what's your feeling on the lentil rice mixture, or I use fiber powder, like fiber. Is one better? Like I find I would have to eat so much lentils and rice to get the kind of fiber to keep me regular. But do you recommend, or like, isn't aren't fermented foods a prebiotic? A prebiotic versus a prebiotic food, or probiotic versus a probiotic food, like actually taking the pill or whatever. Like what's your feeling about either?
I mean, a lot of what I do is to meet people where they're at. So if something is not easy, if taking a fiber powder is the way that you're getting something in at this point, amazing. Amazing. I mean, the whole world of prebiotics, probiotics is a really big topic. Let's make sure we're choosing one that is actually potent, that is actually doing its job, because that is a big industry to get into and kind of debunk what's going on there. But if you have a good source, amazing. We live in a modern world. My preference obviously would be to try and get things from your diet, from your foods.
Right. So can I ask, I'm getting a lot out of this. I hope everybody else is too. But like I have pulled back a bit on taking probiotics, and I am taking a lot of prebiotics. I do apple cider vinegar every day. Like I love sauerkraut. I'm Ukrainian. It's like in our blood. Is that okay, or should I still be taking a probiotic? Like I don't really understand prebiotic, probiotic. And what you just said about the the business, the wellness community, people are making trillions of dollars, and you don't know who to trust anymore. At least I don't, and I'm fairly conversant in this field. I'm not an expert, but I've had the experience, so I don't even know, like, is it okay just to do a prebiotic? Will that create the probiotics?
So again, it's like this interesting combination of things. So the prebiotic, as you mentioned, is kind of food for the bacteria. And then the probiotic is the strains of bacteria. If you are getting a lovely, rich, diverse diet of whole foods, nuts, grains, seeds, vegetables, fruits, and those prebiotics, we should be able to nourish the soil for the right balance of biotic bacteria to grow. Sorry.
So, okay, so we haven't talked about like meal timing or daily routines. What's your recommendation for when to eat? And I'm also going to throw this in intermittent fasting. Do you have any feelings about that? So,
Yeah.
okay.
Um, well, if we were looking at things through the lens of Ayurveda, there are different types. There are groups of people who like to eat quite frequently. There are groups of people who eat every 3 to 4 hours. They are like a machine. They're, on the clock. I eat at 9, I eat at 1, I eat at 5. That's it. And then there's also a type who likes to just eat twice a day, and that's enough. What I see that causes imbalances is missing meals, skipping meals, having a wide variety between like your lunchtime. So maybe, sometimes you eat at 12, sometimes you eat at 2:30 or 3. Having that type of fluctuation can really impact your digestion and contribute to these symptoms of constipation or IBS. Being regular with your meal times is wildly important for the body. Your body preps itself before food comes in. Cortisol starts. And the more regular you can be, the more your body is going to be in tune with your own natural rhythm and respond in a healthy and balanced way.
So, are you suggesting that if you get into a regular rhythm with your eating, that your body will start to create the acidic juices or whatever that make you feel hungry? So that, because like, what if you're not hungry?
You eat anyway.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of mixed messages going on in the body. I mean, obviously, there are times when we don't feel hungry. We're cyclical people, especially as women. There are times when our hunger is more and our hunger is less. A person who tends towards constipation will quite likely skip breakfast. They will quite likely wake up and not feel hungry. If you have a gut imbalance or if you have an overbalance in certain bacteria, they can also dictate when you're not hungry. They'll be asking for the food. That's something that lies behind cravings. Are you craving it, or is this imbalance of bacteria craving it?
Blame the bacteria. Never me. The bacteria wants the cake.
So I think always they want the cake, right? So I think as consistent as you can be, it's this idea that you are the adult, right? You have to steward your body. And I mean, getting into a discussion on satiety can go down a very different path with GLP-1s and that kind of conversation. But I think if we just stick to a standard level of I'm feeling hungry enough to motivate me to go get something out of the fridge or to go buy food, the more that you can figure out your own eating pattern and then stick to that, regardless of being hungry, you're going to inform the body in a different way.
Okay, so now let's get to stress.
Yeah.
How does stress and emotional wellness impact the microbiome? And what tools do you suggest? I mean, I think we all know the answer that's coming. So, what tools do you suggest for stress management also?
Stress, the stomach is the second brain. The gut is the second brain. So
that has finally been proven.
Yeah, and there's a lot of studies and theories and research and people way more knowledgeable than me about this. But there's a bi-directional communication between the gut and the brain. And so the composition of our gut is informing our brain, and our brain, our thoughts and feelings are also informing the gut. I'm sure you definitely have people listening have felt the differences in their digestion or their bowel movements when they're nervous or they're giving a presentation or they have an exam coming up. We get butterflies, we get nauseous sometimes. So how we think and feel definitely has this effect on how well our stomach, our intestines, our digestion is functioning. There's also, on a very physical realm, stress will affect the ability of the stomach to produce acid. The more stressed we are, the less stomach acid we're making, which can then lead to all these issues that we were talking earlier of acid reflux, but also dysbiosis, SIBO, constipation, overgrowth of things, leaky gut. And so it's very important to be in a parasympathetic, in a rested state when we eat, having a body that can jump back and forward between sympathetic and parasympathetic, that stress, fight or flight, which we need to have. When we're
sorry, not to interrupt.
Yeah.
But can you just explain parasympathetic?
Yes.
I don't even know the actual definition of that.
So we have an autonomic nervous system, which is our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. That is what propels us when we are in danger, and when we need to run from the bear or the lion, right? Our blood starts pumping, it goes to our extremities, our pupils get hyper focus on one thing instead of being able to take in information from all around us. Heart rate goes up, and we're not thinking about digestion because we are prepared to run and fight or flee or freeze. And this is also the world in which we find ourselves in all day, every day. Now, the emails are acting like the bear that's coming after us. The news is acting like this big stressor. And so we are more frequently in this sympathetic fight or flight mode. The parasympathetic is what you may have heard of as the rest and digest. This is when we're not worrying about the outside world, and now the body is naturally doing what it automatically does all day, every day, all these chemical processes, and it digests the food. Blood gets sent to the digestive organs to be able to break food down. So when we're stressed, when we have high levels or low levels of cortisol running through us, we're not absorbing our food, we're not breaking it down properly. And so things that we can do, stress management, things that are specific to eating, taking a couple breaths before we eat can really impact your nervous system. It shifts you out of that fight or flight into the rest and digest.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know if I ever really sat and thought about how stress affects digestion. That the more stressed out you are, the worse your digestion's going to be. So do you, and I can't do a video on Hearth Talks without talking about meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you incorporate meditation or breath work into your work with clients?
So yes, I don't always teach it. Breath work,
Well,
definitely. I find that something like alternate nostril breathing, again, because you're switching between left brain, right brain. In yoga, you are switching between the different nadis, the different channels of energy on the left and the right. And so doing something like alternate nostril breathing will rebalance that, which can have effects on more than just how you're eating. It can affect your mood, how you go into your day. And then I think meditation is incredibly powerful. I do not teach meditation, but I will help guide people towards finding something that they like.
How do you differentiate between like a food sensitivity and a microbiome imbalance? Like, are they different? Are they the same? Because I know I've had so many tests done and I have certain food sensitivities. Is that what contributes to microbiome imbalance besides stress and other stuff? Like, talk to me about that a little.
Food sensitivities. So what we're talking about with food sensitivities is when you used to be able to eat avocados and all of a sudden you're finding you have a reaction to it. Suddenly a variety of food groups are popping up that you are having reactions to. This is different to someone who has, let's say, a peanut allergy, which is you're going into anaphylactic shock. You're having a much more immediate response to.
So it's not life-threatening.
Right. But it is causing low grade inflammation. And how that relates to the gut is really this idea of what you mentioned as leaky gut or an impermeable membrane. So that lining of the gut of the intestines, you've been eating foods. Maybe you have a banana every day. Maybe you have eggs every day. Some of the foods that you eat the most frequently, when your digestive system isn't able to fully break these foods down, and now they're coming into the digestive tract, healthy foods, right? But they're not broken down. And so they're sitting in the gut, maldigesting. They are feeding the unhelpful bacteria. They are decreasing the number of beneficial bacteria that can break these foods down, that can help the gut lining. So you have like these two situations of food coming in that is now sitting there and starting to irritate and inflame the gut lining, and you have a decrease in the beneficial bacteria. So that creates an environment that now the gut lining is irritated, and we have these between the cells, it's called tight junctions. And those essentially get broken down, they become loose. We're not making the kinds of proteins that we need to hold them together. And now tiny, tiny molecules of these foods that we eat frequently, that we think are healthy, are now entering into that bloodstream. And our immune system is seeing it as an invader and ramping up an attack. That's when we start to see things like rashes, allergies, brain fog, headaches, achy joints, those kinds of symptoms that's really coming from a food sensitivity. And it's completely reversible.
I was put on the elimination diet like 25 years ago, and I don't know if it's changed since then. It was not easy, but do you ever recommend that? And maybe just explain to people what the elimination diet is.
I mean, there's various forms now of an elimination diet, but in its most basic form, you're taking out anything that is seen to be as naturally inflammatory. So most likely that's going to be gluten, dairy, soy, corn, sometimes some form of mushrooms or nightshades if we're going very extreme. Some people are including grains in that as well. I believe that in America, in the food system that we're in right now, the majority of wheat we're eating has glyphosate on it. So whether it's a gluten sensitivity or it isn't, there's a pesticide that we're consuming all day, every day that is damaging the gut. And the same with dairy. I think there's a lot out there of additional hormones that people are getting. And if we look at its quality, it's thick and gooey.
It's thick and gooey.
Cheese is thick and gooey, right?
Well, let's suck it in here because I want to start telling people, what happens to make cheese, to have cheese, the
Right,
babies, the
right,
baby cows.
right.
So anyway,
But I
yes.
think, I believe that our guts can heal and we can eat all the foods all the healthy whole foods that we want. But in order to do that, we do want to take away the top inflammatory foods.
What's just one mindset shift that you think is essential for anyone who wants to go on a gut healing journey?
Small steps.
Mm.
Small, easy steps that you can build upon day after day, week after week are going to have the biggest effect. I think coming in and wanting to drastically change things and see a result the next day and see a result that you're going to be able to maintain. We're
Very
talking,
American. Very
yeah,
American.
yeah. It's like very small baby steps that compounded over time. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits. Habits built over time can have the biggest effect.
Can you apply that to gut health? Like, could it be starting with 15 foods a week if you normally eat 3, or add 1 prebiotic? And like, I agree, this is all very overwhelming if you're trying to jump in and do everything at once. Like an elimination diet, I had that and it was like no nightshades. It was no nothing. I don't know what I ate for 6 weeks. I think I could have brown rice and vegetables. That was it, basically. No lemon, no lime, like just nothing,
Yeah.
nothing. And I'm a vegetarian, so soy is like so important. I think nuts were cut out too.
Mm.
So anyway, the elimination diet is tough. If you are in enough pain, you will do the elimination diet. But can you just give some really simple examples? Like if you normally have 4 cups of tea or coffee a day, cut 1 out and add water. Like, is that an example of a small shift that can build?
Absolutely. There's many, many ways that we could go here. Yeah, incrementally cutting things down. One really good way to do this is to cut things in half. So if you're having 4 cups of coffee, go to 2 cups of coffee.
Mm.
Maybe if it was 4 cups of coffee throughout the day, just drink before noon. Maybe it's have one of those become a mushroom coffee blend. Like find a good mixture of something to help you gently decrease that, replacing it with something you enjoy and love. Talking about water, if you have 3 cups a day, how can you have that fourth cup? Where can you put it in your day that you're going to remember to do it? What always worked for me was how much water have I had at lunchtime? And I would look, that would be a marker for me by the time I had lunch, just asking myself how much I'd had so that I didn't go the whole day realizing, oh gosh, I had 1 cup or I had 500 milliliters and it was the end of the day. And then you're trying to cram everything in. A small step, maybe if you're looking to completely overhaul your diet or change from processed food to whole foods, take one meal, take breakfast. Do the work, find the time to look at some recipes, go to your local bookstore, go online, find a couple things. You don't have to have a lot, 1 or 2 that sound appealing to you, and then make some time to go to the grocery store, buy those ingredients. We don't think about planning, right? We expect to wake up the next day and, oh, I should have this breakfast. You got to plan for it. And so taking things down into bite-size action steps. What's everything that I need to do to be able to make that breakfast? And then give yourself a day. I don't mean give yourself a whole day to make it. Put a date down. Try it on a weekend when you're not so rushed and you're not futzing about with your normal workday schedule. On a Saturday morning, how can I make this one dish? And then try it and practice it. And then you can bring that in throughout the week and then work your way up to lunch and dinner. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel, so much for being here. How can people stay in touch, learn more about you?
If anybody has questions, I love helping troubleshoot things or give information. My Instagram handle is rachel.a.korn, or you could just search Constipation Whisperer and I should come up. And there's
Korn, just FYI, Korn is
Korn. I have a lot of free information on my Instagram site, and my website is www.raeveda.com, and people can go in there and book a discovery call, book a free constipation clarity call to start to understand what's going on, get to the root cause, and how we can work together.
I think it's so great that someone's taken on the poop issue. I think more people have problems with this than they realize. So, everyone, thank you so much for being part of Hearth Talks. This is one of our specials where I will be interviewing people. So, come back next week. Could be an interview, could be a talking head. Who knows? Thanks again, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me.